If you search for information in Japan about the A-chanr files, you won't find anything. If you search for information about the A-chanr files in any language, you won't find anything. If you search the entire internet for information about the A-chanr files, you won't find anything. Another serious story told a few years ago. We were immersed in Nipponese forums of 2006. Most of the activity took place on 2chan, in a thread called Winnie. People shared movies, games, and other files that disturbed morality or even legality there. Perhaps due to the exuberant amount of data being shared on the forum, which oscillate from memes to viruses, users ended up ignoring a compressed A-chanr archive. Like everything else, it was given a name, and that name was A-chanr. Most people disregarded it because it's common sense not to download anything from a strange website, especially if that website has chan in its name. Nevertheless, the daredevils who downloaded the file experienced content that left them with a bitter and melancholy feeling, which continues to haunt them to this day. I managed to rescue some testimonies of that time to help you understand what I mean. Upon decompressing the file, we would be presented with only one folder. Inside, there would be images of a Japanese girl who remains unknown to this day but would be recognized as A-chanr. The photos were a waste of PC memory. There was practically no difference between that folder and a personal Facebook account. Only the most significant events in her life were shown, such as her birthdays, graduation, and Christmas. However, as you scrolled through the images, you would soon come across something shocking. The last images were of her, lifeless. While not all testimonies tell the same story, it is possible that there may have been multiple versions of the A-chanr files. We will delve into this further later, but to give an example, some claim that they were funeral photographs showing a coffin and the deceased face centered in the image. Others recall seeing inhuman images of the girl's alleged body in an atrocious context, which I'll have to leave to your imagination. From what we know, it is possible that after the exposure of the A-chanr files on the internet, a rumor was created claiming that, upon downloading and viewing the images from the iconic folder, the spirit of that young girl would make its presence known and would not rest until you become a new addition to her collection of dantesque images. While this is a typical legend from that time, it seems to have been supported by the fact that each time the file was reposted, new images were included, sourced from some dark and violent internet forum. I came to think that this was just another story from 2chan, similar to Tomino's Hell, for example. However, according to some recent investigations, it seems that I was mistaken. I must say that the story of the A-chanr files, as fictional as it may seem, was entirely real, or at least mostly real. And I want to warn you from now on that these events were not the work of a troll attempting to scare the unsuspecting. This was not a publicity campaign, let alone a creepypasta. Everything I am about to tell you appears to have happened, and I will provide you with all the evidence that has been gathered regarding the existence of the A-chanr files. You will see how, being something so abnormal, most people assumed it was just a legend. But the fact that it is real makes it even darker, as we are facing one of the most inhumane and peculiar cases of private file leakage that the internet has ever known. And we return to the past. The euphoria left by this paradoxical retro-analog utopia is as damaged as a file from that era. All paths seem barred, all traces seem erased. The scant information currently available about the A-chanr files is provided by a short film belonging to the series, Curse of 2chan. It recounts some of the most astonishing, famous, or disturbing events experienced on that page. What the video presents is a recreation of the curse of the A-chanr files, but in a way, it is more legend than reality. Maybe that is why all of us who came to know about the subject after 2006 only have the notion that it was a file containing images of a lifeless girl, anonymously published. It was believed that once viewed, a curse would befall you, making you part of the photo compilation. Initially, like most stories from A-chanr, it seemed to be just that, a story. Without evidence, without origin, without reason, just a legend. It seems that the last time the A-chanr file was mentioned was on Twitter by the user FolkloreBot, which, as the name suggests, is a bot that comments on internet stories without much context. While it's interesting to know that the existence of the file is still remembered, the contribution provided was null, as it only retold the story we already know. Another one of the few pages that still compile information on the case is shinraidauga.info. It is somewhat more enlightening as it mentions the following. An A-chanr file is an attachment that is discussed among file-sharing enthusiasts. The user assumes that the file contains horrifying images to generate morbid, but its true intention is possibly to transmit a virus to steal your information. Therefore, it is recommended that if you have it, it should be deleted, and you should not open the file at all. Some relevant points are revealed. It is important to consider that this publication was made in 2009, just a few years after the events, so the user does not treat it as a horror legend but as a risk to your privacy. Furthermore, it is implied that the A-chanr file actually existed and was shared with the purpose of spreading a very specific virus, which paradoxically would be the same that initiated this story. I would like to thank the user of Taburo, who dared to delve into the depths of A-chanr to retrieve the next investigation. It has been a long time since I heard from him, but I have seen his daughter from when she was alive until her funeral. When I kept watching, I felt that there was something strange. I struggled to search for very specific things in Japanese as I am not fluent in the language, and the topic becomes complicated for me. Therefore, the credit belongs entirely to the user, the Taburo, who managed to unravel this intricate web of information. There is a popular mantra that claims the internet never forgets. Every day, it seems more real because, with cases like this, I could affirm that if you search hard enough, you will find anything. Perhaps out of curiosity, Saburo delved into a thread on 5chan where nostalgic users shared their experiences using Winnie. They reminisced about an era when they downloaded files that could be practically anything. It was like a digital roulette that, in turn, created a collective fear of the idea that just by entering 2chan or any website ending in chan, your computer or even your own life could be compromised. Apart from that, Winnie eventually disappeared and its creator ended up in jail due to the misuse people made of this service. I was searching through the leaked images and found pictures of a funeral and others of the girls still alive and cheerful. I had to delete them using the Gutman method because I couldn't bear to have seen them. I apologize if the translation is not precise. As I mentioned before, I'm not fluent in the language, but I believe it serves to provide context. Nonetheless, I appreciate it if someone in the comments wants to provide a more accurate translation. In the same thread from May 2009, one of the responses asked if the user was referring to the case of funeral images that were accidentally leaked by the father. In one of the early messages found on the topic, mention was made of another user's daughter. Furthermore, users provided two very significant I turned it off.
You turned it off.
He's already turned off.
This is all we have left, and everything is fine. You're fine because you're nobody. Don't wake up, because you have a lot to live for. Don't doubt, don't think, don't question, just subscribe. All past time was better, evade the frenetic reality and let's live in the past. In the end, we will all be that, just the past. She is Akemi-chan, the idol of this thread. Similarly, other messages affirmed that the girl was A-chanr and that, in some unknown way to them, her photos were leaked. In some way, A-chanr knew the girl's name, possibly because her name was also leaked in some of the photos, which is why the file was named A-chanr. Moving forward in the same thread, it is mentioned that the shared zip file on A-chanr was called A-chanr, which could be a way of saying father in Japanese. Upon decompressing it, we would find the A-chanr file, which may have been lost or, at the very least, it's highly unlikely that anyone would be interested in accessing such material. There is a piece of information that I have avoided mentioning, and it is how A-chanr's images were leaked. I must admit that I cannot provide a definite answer, but I believe this theory is genuinely accurate. Firstly, we know from the testimonies that the photos were leaked by A-chanr's father. This sounds highly questionable, but let's consider the following. In the early 2000s, there was a common virus in Japan called Kintama. In retrospect, one could say it was relatively harmless as it didn't damage your computer. However, it was dedicated to filtering the images you had stored, which would end up on public servers, such as Winnie at the time. There is a key point in all of this, and if you have a good memory, you will recall that the testimonies mentioned that the main objective of the A-chanr file was to infect you with a virus. And that virus was none other than the Kintama virus. So, based on all the data we have, we can theorize that, aside from the legend, the A-chanr file was the case of a young girl who passed away at a young age. Her father innocently compiled photos of the most notable moments of her life, including her funeral. Unfortunately, the computer where the images were stored became infected with the Kintama virus, which leaked the file and gave it widespread attention. Unbeknownst to them, users driven by their morbid curiosity downloaded a mysterious file called A-chanr through the now-defunct Winnie. Little did they know that they were becoming victims of the very same crime that started this whole story. Over time, more morbid versions of the file would be created, giving rise to the legend of a cursed file that, when viewed, would unleash the vengeance of that once unknown girl, but who was once known as A-chanr, upon you. With the closure of Winnie and the transition from A-chanr to 5-chanr, internet users forgot about the case. There is no remaining record of the A-chanr files, except for some testimonies that may also fade away with time. It seems that in the end, A-chanr's story will rest in digital obsolescence, fading into oblivion or being erased, much like perhaps the fate of all of us in this alternate reality. Although, I suppose that if you now search for information on the internet about the A-chanr files, you will at least find this video. This is Gaspar's Paradox, and this never happened.